In the arid lands of the south, where the wind dragged the sand and the sun fell like a hammer upon the earth, there lived a potter named Rashid. He had a modest workshop beside an almost dry oasis, and there he raised only his two sons, Samir, the eldest of impulsive character and noble heart, and Jalil, the younger, quiet but observant as a hawk. Their mother had died years before, and since then Rashid worked day and night molding vessels and jugs that he sold in the nearby village market. His life was simple, without luxuries or surprises, until one day everything changed. One hot afternoon, while the boys helped load the kiln with firewood, Rashid emerged from the workshop with a strange expression on his face. He said nothing. He simply walked toward the abandoned well behind the house, looked around nervously, and knelt beside a large stone. His sons, curious, watched him from afar. Rashid lifted the stone with effort and pulled out a worn cloth sack. He opened it slightly, and for an instant, something gleamed under the evening light. Then he quickly put it away and covered the hiding place again. Samir, unable to contain his curiosity, came out of hiding and called to his father. "What are you hiding, father? Why do you act as if someone were pursuing you?" Rashid startled, but seeing his two sons before him, he sighed deeply. "Come with me," he said in a weary voice. "It's time you knew the truth." The three sat under the shade of a dried palm tree, and Rashid began to speak. "Many years ago, when you were barely children, a strange man came to this place. He was a merchant of fine fabrics. He came from distant lands and brought with him a fortune in gold and silver coins. But on the road, he was attacked by bandits. He managed to escape with his life, though badly wounded, and arrived here asking for help. I took him in, healed him, gave him water and food. He spent several days recovering in our home." Samir and Jalil listened in silence, eyes wide with amazement. Rashid continued, "Before leaving, the merchant gave me that sack and said, 'Keep it for me. I will return someday to collect it. If I don't return in 10 years, it's yours.' I accepted, not out of ambition, but because I felt he was an honest man and deserved my loyalty. Almost 15 years have passed since then, and he never returned. But I haven't touched a single coin. That wealth doesn't belong to me." Jalil, always reflective, asked, "And why do you hide it from us, father? You've done nothing wrong." Rashid lowered his gaze. "Because I fear that knowledge of that wealth will awaken in you desires you shouldn't have. I fear that temptation will reach you as it has reached so many good men." Samir, indignant, responded, "Father, you've raised us with honor. We would never touch what isn't ours." Rashid smiled sadly. "I know, my son, but the world doesn't always respect honor." The days passed peacefully after that conversation. But one morning, while Rashid prepared the clay for his vessels, a tall, thin man appeared on the road, dressed in worn clothes and leaning on a walking stick. His face was marked by the sun, and his eyes were gray as ash. He approached the workshop and greeted with a firm voice. "Are you Rashid the potter?" he asked. Rashid nodded, puzzled. The man smiled. "I am Faisal, brother of the merchant you helped years ago. My brother died 2 months ago in distant lands, but before dying he spoke to me of you. He told me he had left you a sack with his fortune and that I should come to collect it." Rashid felt a chill. "I'm very sorry. Your brother was a noble man. Come, I'll show you where it is." They walked together toward the well, followed closely by Samir and Jalil. Rashid lifted the stone, put his hand in the hole and searched for the sack. But he didn't find it. He searched deeper, with growing desperation. Nothing. "It can't be," he murmured. "It was here. I swear on my life, it was here." Faisal looked at him coldly. "Are you telling me you lost my brother's fortune?" Rashid, pale, shook his head. "I didn't lose it," Someone took it. But I don't know who. Faisal clenched his fists. Then you're responsible. You accepted it. You were supposed to guard it. And now you'll pay me for your negligence. If you're enjoying this story and want to know how it ends, leave me a comment telling me what you think happened to the sack. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the ending. Faisal went directly to the village and filed a complaint with the local judge, a severe man named Hamza, known for his inflexibility in matters of justice. Rashid was summoned to the tribunal, and there, before a room full of curious neighbors, he had to defend himself. "Sir Judge," said Rashid in a trembling voice, "I haven't stolen anything. I guarded that fortune as if it were my own life. I don't know what happened, but I swear I didn't touch it." Judge Hamza observed him with skepticism. "And who else knew about that hiding place?" Rashid hesitated a moment. "Only my 2 sons. But they would never do such a thing." Hamza leaned back in his chair. "Rashid, even if I believe your word, the law is clear. You accepted the responsibility of guarding that fortune. If it doesn't appear, you must compensate this man or face prison." Rashid tried to protest, but the judge raised his hand. "I give you 1 month. If in that time the sack doesn't appear, or you don't bring me proof of your innocence, I will sentence you to 5 years in prison." And so, Rashid was taken to a provisional cell while the deadline was fulfilled. Samir and Jalil were devastated. They knew their father was innocent, but had no way to prove it. They decided to act on their own. Samir, the impulsive one, wanted to go find Faisal and confront him, convinced that he himself had stolen the sack. But Jalil, more cautious, proposed another idea. "Brother, before accusing, we must investigate. Someone knew about the hiding place. Someone took it. And that someone left clues." For days, the brothers searched every corner of the workshop, the yard, the well. They questioned the neighbors, looked for footprints, any sign, but they found nothing. Desperation began to invade them. Until one afternoon, while Jalil was checking old vessels piled in a forgotten corner of the workshop, he found something strange. A broken jar he didn't recognize. Inside were remains of dried clay, and rolled among them, a small piece of fabric. It was the same color as the sack his father had kept. Jalil ran to show it to Samir. "Look at this. Someone was here. Someone touched the sack and left this behind." Samir examined the fabric carefully. "But who? No one enters the workshop without our permission." Then Jalil remembered something. "Do you remember the helper father hired a few months ago? That quiet young man who came to work in the afternoons?" Samir frowned. "Yes, but father fired him because he wasn't trustworthy. He said he was always looking where he shouldn't." They decided to look for that young man. They asked around the village and discovered his name was Tariq and that he now worked at the market, selling dates. They went to find him, but when Tariq saw them coming, he tried to flee. Samir, faster, caught up with him and grabbed his arm. "Why are you running, Tariq? What are you hiding?" Tariq, nervous, denied everything. "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't done anything." But Jalil took out the piece of fabric and showed it to him. "We found this in the workshop. It's from the sack that disappeared. And you were the only stranger who was near the hiding place." Tariq turned pale, and finally, with a broken voice, he confessed. All right, I took it. But it wasn't my idea. It was Faisal who asked me to." The brothers were astonished. "What are you saying?" Tariq, trembling, explained. "Faisal came to see me weeks ago. He told me he knew that Rashid was keeping something valuable and offered me money if I helped him recover it. He told me that sack belonged to him by right, that his brother had left it to him, not to Rashid. I needed the money, so I accepted. One night, while you were sleeping, I entered the workshop, went to the well, and took the sack. I gave it to Faisal the next day. He paid me a few coins and told me that if anyone asked, I knew nothing. Samir exploded in fury. You've betrayed us. Because of you, our father is in prison. Jalil stopped him. Brother, calm down. This is what we needed. Now we have the truth. They took Tariq before Judge Hamza, who listened to the confession with a grave expression. The judge ordered that Faisal be brought immediately. When the man entered the room, he still maintained his air of superiority, but seeing Tariq there, his face changed. Hamza interrogated him harshly. Is what this young man says true? Did you orchestrate the theft of the sack you then claimed as yours? Faisal tried to deny it, but Tariq, scared and repentant, insisted on his version. Finally, under pressure, Faisal admitted part of the truth. Yes, I planned to recover that sack. But it's not theft. That money belonged to my brother, and therefore it belongs to me. Rashid had no right to keep it. Hamza struck the table furiously. Silence. Your brother entrusted that fortune to Rashid under a clear agreement. You have no right whatsoever to it. And furthermore, you have deceived this court. You have bribed a young man to commit a crime, and you have caused the unjust imprisonment of an honest man. The judge ordered that Rashid be brought immediately. When the potter entered the room, gaunt and confused, his sons ran to embrace him. Hamza, with a solemn voice, declared, Rashid, after an exhaustive investigation, your innocence has been proven. Faisal will be sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud, bribery, and false testimony. Tariq will receive a lesser sentence for his cooperation, but must return what he received and work to compensate for the damage. Rashid, with tears in his eyes, could barely believe what he was hearing. Then Hamza added, and as for the sack, Faisal must reveal where he hid it. Faisal, defeated, confessed that he had buried it under the floor of his own house. It was recovered that same afternoon and returned to Rashid. Back at home, Rashid sat with his sons under the same palm tree where everything had begun. He opened the sack and contemplated the gold and silver coins that gleamed under the moonlight. My sons, he said in a serene voice, this wealth is not ours, but the merchant is no longer here, and his brother has proven himself unworthy. We will use this money to help those who need it in this village, and with what's left over, we'll improve our workshop to give work to more people. Samir and Jalil nodded, proud of their father. Jalil asked, Father, what did you learn from all this? Rashid smiled. I learned that honesty always finds its way, even when the world tries to hide it, and that we must trust those around us, but also be vigilant, because not everyone has a clean heart. The months passed, and Rashid kept his word. He distributed much of the fortune among the poorest families in the village, built a new community kiln, and hired unemployed young people so they could learn the pottery trade. His workshop became a place of hope and dignified work. Samir and Jalil grew into men of integrity, always remembering their father's teachings. If you made it this far and want to keep listening to stories that make you reflect, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any video. There was a young man named Amin who lived on the outskirts of the city in a wooden cabin that barely withstood the storms. Every morning he would wake up before dawn, walk 2 hours to the center, and stand by the main fountain, hoping someone would offer him a job, any job. But the days passed, and no one looked at him. The coins in his pocket had disappeared weeks ago, and hunger was beginning to be a constant companion. That morning, like every morning, Amin arrived at the plaza hoping something would change. He sat on the edge of the fountain, watching the merchants shouting their offers, the children running between the stalls, the women haggling over the price of fabrics. Everything seemed normal, until a murmur began to spread through the plaza like an invisible wave. Conversations died out. The merchants stopped shouting. The children stopped dead in their tracks. And then everyone began to move away. Some walking quickly, others directly running toward the side streets. Amin stood up, confused. What was happening? He saw no fire, heard no alarm cries. There were no soldiers, just that strange silence that had taken over the place. He turned his head in all directions, trying to understand, and that's when he saw it. A black carriage, pulled by 4 black horses, slowly advancing along the cobblestone path. The driver wore a dark coat and a hat that concealed his face. But the most disturbing thing wasn't the carriage, but the people's reaction. It was as if everyone knew something that Amin didn't. The carriage stopped right in front of him, the door opened with a creak, and from inside descended a tall man, about 50 years old, with hair perfectly combed back and an impeccable suit. His face had no expression whatsoever, as if it were carved in stone. He approached Amin with slow steps, studying him with his gaze. "Why didn't you flee like the others?" asked the man with a deep and calm voice. Amin swallowed. "I don't know why they should flee from you, sir. I'm just looking for work." The man smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Work, you say? How convenient. I'm just looking for someone to help me with a delicate matter. Someone strong, young, willing to follow instructions." Amin felt a chill, but also a spark of hope. "What kind of work, sir?" "You'll find out when we get there. But I'll pay you well, very well. More than you'd earn in an entire year working in this plaza." The man extended his hand toward the carriage. "Are you coming or not?" Amin looked around. The plaza was almost empty. The few who remained watched him from afar, with expressions of pity. Something inside him told him not to get into that carriage, but hunger, desperation, and the promise of money were stronger. He nodded and got in. The interior of the carriage was luxurious, with red velvet seats and crystal lamps hanging from the ceiling. The man sat across from him and knocked twice on the ceiling. The carriage began to move, leaving the city behind. During the journey, Amin tried to start a conversation, but the man responded with monosyllables or simply ignored him. He looked out the window with an absent expression, as if he were thinking about something completely different. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the carriage stopped. When Amin got out, he was left speechless. Before him rose an enormous mansion, with white columns, perfectly manicured gardens, and a fountain in the center of the courtyard. It was like something out of a fairy tale. The man walked toward the entrance without saying a word, and Amin followed him. Inside, everything was even more impressive. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, paintings on the walls that seemed to watch you. The man gestured with his hand, and 2 servants appeared carrying trays of food. "Eat, rest. Tomorrow you'll begin your work." Amin sat at the table and began to eat. It had been so long since he'd tasted anything like this that he almost forgot where he was. As he ate, he heard soft footsteps approaching. He looked up and saw a young woman, perhaps a couple of years younger than him, with dark hair tied in a braid and eyes that seemed to carry an ancient sadness. She sat silently on the other side of the table and began to eat as well, but without looking up. "Who is she?" Amin asked the man. "My niece," the man replied without flinching. "She's lived with me since her parents died." The young woman said nothing, but Amin noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she held the fork. Something wasn't right. He could feel it. After dinner, the man showed him a room where he could sleep. "Rest. We'll leave early tomorrow." And he left, closing the door behind him. Amin lay down on the bed, but couldn't sleep. All of this was too strange. Why did people flee when they saw that man? Why did the young woman seem so sad? What kind of work required so much mystery? He was about to fall asleep when he heard a soft knock on the door. He sat up immediately. "Who is it?" The door opened slowly, and the young woman entered. She was carrying something wrapped in a cloth. She approached the bed and handed it to him without saying a word. "What is this?" asked Amin, unwrapping it. Inside was a small mirror with a silver frame and a handwritten note that said, "When you're in danger, break it." Amin looked up at her. "I don't understand. Why are you giving me this?" The young woman looked at him with eyes full of tears. "Because I know where he'll take you tomorrow, and I know you won't come back unless you use this." "What are you talking about? What's going to happen tomorrow?" She shook her head. "I can't tell you more. Just don't drink anything he offers you. And if you do, break the mirror." Before Amin could ask more questions, she left the room as silently as she had entered. Amin didn't sleep that night. At dawn, the man entered his room. "It's time, let's go." They got into the carriage again and traveled for hours, entering an arid and desolate territory. Finally, they stopped at the foot of a rocky and arid mountain that rose imposingly toward the sky. The man got out of the carriage and signaled Amin to follow him. "This is where you'll work," said the man, pointing to the mountain. "At the top of that mountain there's a cave full of precious stones. Your job is to climb up, collect as many as you can, and bring them to me." Amin looked up. The mountain was steep, dangerous. "And how am I supposed to come down with the stones?" "That's your concern, not mine." The man pulled out a canteen from his coat. "Here, drink water before you climb. You'll need it." Amin remembered the young woman's words. "Don't drink anything he offers you." But the man was staring at him, waiting. Amin took the canteen, pretended to drink, but barely wet his lips. "Thank you," he said, returning it. The man frowned, but said nothing. "Climb. I'll wait here." Amin began to climb. The rock was hot under his hands, and the sun beat down mercilessly. Each step was an effort, but he kept going. When he finally reached the top, he found the cave the man had mentioned. He entered and, indeed, there were shining stones everywhere. But something didn't make sense. Why didn't the man climb himself? Why did he need someone else? If you're wondering what's going to happen now, follow the story to the end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now so you don't miss any details. Amin filled a bag with the stones and returned to the edge of the summit. "I have the stones!" he shouted down. The man looked at him from below. "Perfect, now throw them to me." Amin began to throw the stones one by one. The man collected them with a smile that grew with each stone that fell. When the bag was empty, Amin shouted, "I'm done. How do I get down?" The man looked at him for a long moment. And then he laughed, a cold, cruel laugh. "You don't come down. That's the deal. Thanks for your service." And without saying more, he got into the carriage and drove away. Amin was paralyzed. He couldn't believe it. He was trapped at the top of a mountain, without water, without food, without a way down. He looked around desperately. The sun was beginning to set, and soon it would be completely dark. Then he remembered the mirror. He took it out of his pocket and held it with trembling hands. "I don't know if this will work, but I have no other choice." And he broke it against a rock. Immediately, a thick fog began to form around him. From that fog emerged a figure, tall and ethereal, with eyes that shone like stars. "You have freed me," said the figure with a voice that resonated like the wind. "In return, I will grant you one wish." Amin didn't waste time. "I want to get down from this mountain." The figure nodded. "So be it." And in an instant, Amin found himself standing at the foot of the mountain, safe and sound. But he had no intention of returning to his cabin. He had to go back to that mansion. He had to understand what was happening, and he had to help that young woman. He walked all night, guiding himself by the stars, until finally, at dawn, he saw the mansion in the distance. He hid among the bushes and waited. It wasn't long before the carriage left again, with the man inside. He waited until it drove away and then ran toward the mansion. The young woman was in the garden, watering the flowers. When she saw him, she dropped the watering can. You're alive, thanks to you," said Amin. "But I need you to tell me the truth. What's happening here?" She looked toward the mansion, making sure no one else was nearby, and then began to speak. "That man isn't my uncle. He's my husband. He forced me to marry him 2 years ago, after he killed my brother." Amin felt the air escape from his lungs. "What? My brother and I were orphans. One day, that man appeared in the plaza, just like he did with you. He offered my brother work. I insisted on going with him because I didn't want to be left alone. He brought us here, and the next day he took my brother to that mountain. He never came back. The man told me he had an accident, but I knew it was a lie. He threatened me, told me that if I didn't marry him, he'd kill me too. So I agreed, because I had no other choice." "And the others?" asked Amin. "How many has he?" "I don't know exactly, but I've seen many young people enter this house and never leave. He tells them all the same thing. He offers them work, takes them to the mountain, and abandons them there. He uses the precious stones to become richer. And no one stops him because no one knows what he does." Amin clenched his fists. "Well, I'm going to stop him." "How?" she asked desperately. "He's powerful. He has connections. No one believes poor people like us. Then we'll do it our way." Amin looked toward the horizon. "When does he come back?" "Usually in the afternoon. He brings another young person almost every week." "Perfect. Then we have time." Over the next few hours, Amin and the young woman, who told him her name was Layla, carefully planned. When the man returned with his next victim, Amin would be waiting. Just as Layla had predicted, the man returned at dusk. He brought with him a boy no more than 17 years old, with a fragile and frightened appearance. Amin watched them from a second-floor window. The man and the boy dined together, just as Amin had done. Layla served the food in silence, casting quick glances toward the window where she knew Amin was hiding. The next day, early in the morning, the man and the boy left in the carriage. Amin waited a few minutes and then ran out of the mansion. He knew the way now. He knew exactly where they were headed. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life, taking shortcuts through the field, jumping over rocks and bushes. He reached the mountain before the carriage and hid behind a rock formation. The carriage arrived shortly after. The man and the boy got out. The man pulled out the canteen, just as he had done with Amin. "Drink before you climb." The boy, innocent and trusting, drank without hesitation. Within seconds, his eyes began to close. He staggered and fell to the ground, unconscious. The man smiled with satisfaction. Then, out of nowhere, 2 enormous birds appeared, with sharp claws and curved beaks. They grabbed the boy by the arms and began to fly toward the top of the mountain. Amin watched everything horrified. That's how he did it. He drugged them so they couldn't resist. But this time would be different. When the man turned around to get into the carriage, Amin came out of his hiding place. "Hello again." The man turned abruptly, his eyes wide open with surprise. "You? But how?" "Surprised to see me alive?" Amin walked toward him slowly. "I suppose you didn't count on anyone being able to escape your trap." The man backed away, searching for something in his coat, probably a weapon. But Amin was faster. He pushed him against the carriage and snatched the canteen from him. "What did you put in the water?" The man didn't respond. Amin stared at him. "If you don't tell me, I'll make you drink your own medicine." Okay, shouted the man. "It's a sedative. It only puts them to sleep for a few hours. It doesn't kill them." "No. You kill them by leaving them to die of hunger and thirst at the top of that mountain." Amin uncapped the canteen. "Now, drink." The man tried to resist, but Amin was stronger. He held him by the head and forced him to drink. Within seconds, the man began to stagger. His eyes closed and he fell to the ground, unconscious. The birds appeared again, as if they had been waiting. They grabbed the man by the arms and carried him flying toward the top of the mountain. Amin took a deep breath. Now he had to rescue the boy. He began to climb again, this time with more urgency. When he reached the top, he found the boy still unconscious, but breathing. He carried him on his shoulders and began the descent. It was slow, exhausting, but they finally made it down. The boy woke up shortly after, confused. "What happened? Where am I?" Amin explained everything. The boy paled. "I almost died, but you didn't. Now go home, and never come back here." The boy nodded and ran away. Amin looked toward the top of the mountain. From there, he could hear the man's screams, asking for help. But Amin felt no compassion. That man had condemned so many others to that same fate. He returned to the mansion. Layla was waiting for him at the door with tears in her eyes. "Did you do it?" "Yes. He won't hurt anyone anymore." Layla hugged him, crying with relief. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. Just, what will you do now?" Layla looked toward the mansion. "This house is full of riches that he stole. I think they should go to the people who really need them." Amin smiled. "I agree." Over the following weeks, Amin and Layla sold everything in the mansion and distributed the money among the poor families of the city. The news spread quickly, and people began to see Amin as a hero. Over time, Amin and Layla fell in love. They got married in a simple ceremony, surrounded by the people they had helped. And although they were never rich again, they lived happily, knowing they had done the right thing. If you made it this far and want to keep enjoying stories like this, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any new videos.